Joining us now, the sponsor of the Epstein Files Transparency Act, which created that deadline, Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna. He is a member of the House Oversight Committee.
Congressman, welcome to the table. So we all know we have a very, in my estimation, a very underdeveloped man sitting in the White House. And he is not, in my view, that was just a punkish move. I don't know who he thinks he was impressing. I guess it's more impressive if the President of the United States flips you off. But put your big boy pants on, Mr. President. The country's a big country and we have opinions. We have opinions about you, we have opinions about your actions. So that's all I want to say about that. The fact that the White House, response was a lunatic was wildly screaming expletives in a complete fit of rage. Their over-dramatization of stuff is another bit of crap we have to put up with. So I just want to get your reaction. That was mine. Yeah. I want to get yours.
Well, underdeveloped is pretty gracious for the new year.
My daddy's teaching me how to do these things right. So.
Look, it's not a coincidence of what sets him off. What set him off is the heckler saying you're a pedophile protector. I was just on a podcast with Sean Ryan. Sean Ryan's the #2 podcaster in the country. He was all in on Trump. And he said what lost Trump is protecting pedophiles. That's what this Epstein issue is about. It has gotten under his skin because he knows he's losing the MAGA base on this. He was elected to expose the corruption, to hold these people accountable. Instead, every move they made is to protect people who raped underage girls. And now you have today a federal judge who responded to Massey and my motion, quite a breakthrough where he's now ordered the Department of Justice to brief him on whether he should appoint a special master to actually get these documents released.
The fact that that happened today at a Ford plant in Dearborn, Michigan, while the president was on a factory tour with the CEO of Ford at the end of the manager of the plant, I think speaks to the fact that this is broken through in ways that I don't think anyone would have imagined last year when this first happened. Let's read a little from this, what the judge said, to your point. In a letter to the judge, Khanna and Massey wrote that they believe the criminal violations have taken place and must be addressed, but first they hope federal courts will step in and force the Department of Justice to follow the law. Are you optimistic that the courts are going to step in quickly? Because I think they'll step in. How quickly will they do so?
Well, we filed a letter yesterday, and the judge issued the order this morning. A lot of times, judges, when you file an amicus friend of the court intervention, just ignore it. Not only did the judge decisively order it, he's ordered briefings by January 20th, and he wants to know, why is the DOJ think that they're going to release these files and comply with the law? Should he appoint a special master to ensure that compliance? And, the important thing is, what are the documents we want? We want the survivors' testimony to the FBI agents where they name the other pedophiles, where they name the other men who abused young girls. That's what we want. They haven't released a single one. So even the judge ordering that those documents need to come out will be a big deal. But your point about this breaking through, it's broken through, and it's broken through with men, and it's broken through with MAGA men. And that's why it doesn't surprise me on the factory floor. And it's a huge issue for this president.
I also think what is happening in Minnesota is breaking through with a lot of people, in part because there are so many onlookers who are managing to take videos as these incidents happen. And so all across this country, we are watching what is happening in Minneapolis. I'm not sure if you saw this video. It was a man named Christian Molina, a U.S. citizen. He said he was driving to a mechanic on Monday. Agents in another vehicle followed him, even turned on their siren. He said his rear bumper was hit by those agents as he turned a corner. He refused to produce identification for those agents, saying he wanted to wait for local police. Let's watch some of this exchange and then talk about it on the other side.
See what you did to my car?
Yeah, you broke in front of me.
No, I didn't.
These are the tense moments in the streets of Minneapolis after Christian Molina, an American citizen, says an ICE agent rammed into his car.
I don't need to show you anything. I don't need to show you anything.
If you're innocent, why did you ram?
The Ecuadorian American says he was just driving around when he was racially profiled by ICE.
Why do you think they stopped you?
because I look Latino. I'm brown and I got mustache. I don't know. There's no reason for that. They only looked at me and then just pull, like trying to follow me for no reason.
Racial profiling, which I will say was sanctioned by the U.S. Supreme Court. My question for you, given the success you have had in building a bipartisan coalition around the release of the Epstein files, are there lessons from that organizing that can apply to the conversation that Democrats are now having around needing to rein in ICE, rein in DHS, the way in which this president is going after the Fed? Where do you see opportunities for Republicans to get on board and actually hold this administration accountable?
You're right, because it's about huge government overreach. And even Joe Rogan today was railing against ICE agents, saying in this country, you can't have masked ICE agents go shoot people. I mean, you look at that video with the 37-year-old mother, and you know that agent could have done a lot of things short of shooting her and killing her. And so I believe that when you frame this as an issue of excessive force, civil liberties, freedoms, people, even Republicans, are concerned. And those Kavanaugh stuffs are horrible.
I agree with you that the constituents are there. Do you get a sense, though, that the people you work with in your chamber, the Republicans in your chamber, are there?
I get a sense that more of them are willing to speak up. I was just talking to Leader Jeffries today.
I was about to say, not Mike Johnson. He's speaking up.
But look, Leader Jeffries made an incredible, important point. It wasn't just the Epstein discharge petition that passed. We had a discharge petition that passed to protect workers, and we had the discharge petition passed to extend the health care tax credits. He said in the last 30 years, you've not had that many discharge petitions passed. There are so many discharge petitions floating in the House of Representatives. Johnson has lost control of the House. The president is losing control of the caucus. And this is because more people are saying they see his poll numbers. They see his losing support of the podcasters and of some of his base. And they're saying there's going to be life after Trump. Do I want to survive politically?
Yeah, go ahead, Simone. Look, from my perspective,
say it, sir.
I just want to put a statement on the table. Congressman, I think you are at a tipping point as a member of the House. I think your caucus is at a tipping point. This country is tipped. We have an individual in the White House who's unfit to be there. It's not my proof. It's the TMZ evidence. It's what's happening on the streets of Minnesota, what happened in the streets right here where I grew up in Washington, D.C. Your leadership means more now than at any point in the history of this country. Why? Because we are leaderless by the men who are in charge. So what Alicia asked you, what Simone has put on the stage, those are questions that reflect an anxiety across the country, not just in little pockets where Democrats have tea, not just in little pockets where former and current Republicans like myself are sitting there wringing their hands. We're looking for people who are in the job, who have the title. I'm not looking at the men and women who sit in that Capitol with an R behind their name because they're bought and paid for by Donald Trump. They're wholly owned. And even when they do break their silence, it's limited. It's when they're on their way out the door. It's when they're going to stay in the shadows and peek around and not admit the man behind the curtain is the one who's manipulating things. So, sir, help us move to the next point, because that's what's required right now. We can't trust anybody else, whether it's Jeffries or the process doesn't work, sir. Stop playing the process game. It is where you're going to show fight on behalf of the American people. That's what this November is about. And that's why Donald Trump wants to interrupt this election, because he knows damn well what lies ahead for him is not good if the American people get their way.
Well, I have a thought, but I feel like you should respond.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think it's the time for boldness. I mean, that was what the Epstein fight was about. That's what my call to arrest the ICE officer and prosecute him was about. That is what those of us who have called to not have regime change war in Venezuela is about, and to make sure that he doesn't start bombing Iran and bombing Greenland and bombing and taking over Cuba, that we actually stand up to a president who wants to have regime change wars across the country. That's what those of us who believe that there should be prosecution for every single person in the Trump administration who's violated the law when we have a Democratic president, that we're not going to have reconciliation without justice and accountability, and that we need to keep a list of people who are violating the law, because there is not going to be impunity. There is a new courage in the Democratic caucus. I see this. We may not have been there a year ago. We are there now. There is a new step. There is a new boldness, and it's not just about procedure. It's about moral clarity.
I know we have to
Thank you,
go,
Steve. Go
but
ahead.
part of that moral clarity, would you support impeachment if Democrats take back the House? Because on the list of criminals and offenses, if many of the things we've seen over the last year from the president are not impeachable offenses, I'm unsure about what is.
Yes, I do. And look, I know people say, oh, it's a distraction. That's what they said about Epstein when I started. Oh, Ro, it's a distraction. Let's talk about the cost of rent and the cost of food. You can do both.